What is up, everyone? Obviously, the Detroit Lions win 38-31 over, 38-30 over the Baltimore Ravens. And, the more you look into it, like the more you think about what the Baltimore Ravens were unable to do. When you when you talk about Detroit running for 202 yards on the Baltimore Ravens, you think about that just by itself, and you think, wow, that's pretty special. When you think about Jared Goff, 202 yards, 20 for 28, one touchdown. You think that that's not going to be good enough to win a football game, but you had four touchdowns from the rushing in terms of Jameer Gibbs having two, Dave Montgomery having two, all over the place. You had 202 yards from your receiving yards. Obviously, St. Brown hit 37, Williams hit 43, Laporta 33, and I think some of his catches were just absolutely gold when you think about some of the things that happen in terms of like it being a crucial first down that it was needed, and Sam Laporta was there to do it. When you think about the last time the Detroit Lions beat the Baltimore Ravens, you have to go back to 2005, October 9th, 2005, at Ford Field in Detroit, Michigan. Kevin Jones was the running back. Joey Harrington was the quarterback. And the leading rusher of that game wasn't Kevin Jones. It was Sean Bryson. That's how far you have to go back. And to make it even more like central to people who like if you follow college football at any point, Derek Mason was the leading receiver for the Baltimore Ravens. He was coaching at Vanderbilt like 2 years ago as a head coach of the Vanderbilt football program. Your leading receiver was Kevin Johnson. Roy Williams had 2 receptions for 24 yards. Sean Bryson, 1 reception, 18 yards. Casey Fitzsimmons had 1 reception for 2 yards. And you had a bunch of guys that had 1 reception. It's been a while since the Detroit Lions have beat the Baltimore Ravens. And in fact, they have never beat the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore. They have never done it. Even with Barry Sanders, where the game the Baltimore Ravens won 19-10, it has never happened in the history of the Baltimore Ravens and the Detroit Lions. It never happened. And what makes me feel the most satisfied about this win today was total plays. Detroit had 66. The Ravens had 54. Total yards. Detroit had 426. The Ravens had 318. Detroit had 1 more drive than the Ravens, but they had 6.5 yards per play, and they were 4 for 5 in the red zone. The Ravens were 2 for 4 in the red zone. I don't think a lot of people thought coming into this game that the defense would win this game by any stretch of the imagination. And when you get to the point where you think, okay, Calvin Shepard had a hell of a game. 7 sacks today on Lamar Jackson. And let's put this into perspective right now. When you play the Baltimore Ravens and you play Lamar Jackson, you are not trying to get sacks. You just aren't. Your whole goal when you're playing Lamar Jackson is to contain him and let him throw from the pocket. That's what you try to do. Sacks are not the name of the game when you play Lamar Jackson. It just is never the name of the game. You play Lamar Jackson, you're trying to let him throw from the pocket, let him make the plays that he needs to make, but overall, you're trying to make him throw from the pocket. You're not trying to get sacks. I've seen a lot of people, whether it was from social media, whether it was from Twitter, whether it was from different categories of the world, they were thinking, why doesn't Hutch have more sacks? And when you think about it like this, like I told you coming into this game, when me and James were doing the podcast, we talked about Rosengarten as one of the best tackles in football. He's only allowed 4 pressures coming into this game. Coming into this game, he's only allowed 4 pressures. 4. So Hutchinson, he's gone against Miles Garrett. He's gone against some pretty good defensive linemen, and he's only allowed 4 pressures. Today, Hutch got a sack, but that was on Ronnie Stanley. That wasn't on Rose Garden. Rose Garden's he's a total beast as a tackle. He's right up there with Penei Sewell, who I looked it up today. Penei Sewell only has 1 pressure on the year, which is fascinating to me. That's unbelievable. But when you think about what the Detroit Lions were able to do, it wasn't that they just beat the shit out of the Baltimore Ravens, because they did. I mean, the final score was 38-30. But when you think about it from this perspective, and I want you to think about this from this perspective, they ran it down their throats. Let's go back to the scoring plays, okay? They had a final drive that ended in 10:48, 18 plays, 98 yards, okay? That doesn't happen with the Baltimore Ravens defense, okay? And then you went let me see this. You went 7 plays and 96 yards in 3 minutes and 41 seconds. That's not what a Baltimore Ravens defense does. You know what the Baltimore Ravens defense usually does, and this is how it is. Um, they play field position. They want you to kick the ball. They want to pin you deep, and they want to make sure that you make the mistakes. That's what the Baltimore Ravens usually do. And you were able to go 96 yards on one drive. You were able to go 98 yards on one drive. You can't get better than that. You literally can't get better than that. When you talk about what you were able to do just in the drives alone, those were 2 drives that you got a touchdown on. And it doesn't matter how you got the touchdown. It matters that you got the touchdown. And Jared Goff made some elite throws on those drives. And like we've said for the last couple weeks, if you listen to this podcast, the Green Bay game was a misnomer. It was a misnomer. When you go play the Baltimore Ravens, okay, I know they're missing Matt Buquay. I know they're missing Kyle Van Noy, but they still have some pretty freaking good pieces on their defense, okay? And you went to Baltimore, which is a place that they don't lose much. They don't lose much. Baltimore Ravens don't lose in Baltimore very much. You went to Baltimore, you beat Lamar Jackson, and like we've said, I said on the podcast last week, this is Lamar Jackson versus NFC teams. He's 24-4, 5,500 yards passing, 66 completion percentage, 48 touchdowns, 9 receptions, 106.4 passer rating, and you were able to hem him in. So what came with it was Lamar Jackson. It was 21 for 27, 288 yards. He had 3 touchdown passes, which is fine. I'll give him all day long. Derrick Henry, 50 yards rushing. Lamar Jackson on 7 carries, 35 yards rushing. When you want to know where you won the football game in terms of how you won this football game in Baltimore, look no further than the way that you defended the rush. Look no further. Because when you hold Lamar Jackson to 35 yards, when you hold Derrick Henry to under 70 yards, 75 yards, you're going to win the football game. And I look at guys like Zay Flowers, who had 13 yards receiving. I look at a guy like Rashad Bateman, who had 63 yards receiving. Mark Andrews had 91 yards receiving. To me, what this game showed me, in my perspective, is what the Detroit Lions are really capable of. You know, for years, I mean, not for years, for months, we've heard about that it's Ben Johnson, it's Aaron Glenn, this and that, this and that. The reality of the situation is they follow what their coach does. You understand that? They follow what their coach does. Whether you're not a Dan Campbell fan, whether you're a Dan Campbell fan, whether you don't think he has the biggest balls in the world, it doesn't matter. Because this team, regardless of who's calling the plays, Ben Johnson, John Morton, has the same identity. Same identity. And let's not make a bygone be bygone. But the Detroit Lions absolutely destroyed the Baltimore Ravens today. Because if this game would have been in Detroit, it would have been a totally different situation. A totally different situation. They came to play Baltimore and they stopped the rush. 19 carries, 85 yards. You held Baltimore under 100 yards rushing. Under 100 yards rushing. Think about that. Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, you're hoping to just hold them under 150 yards rushing. That's literally what you're hoping. You come into the game against Baltimore and you're hoping, let's hold them under 100 yards. You hold them under 90 yards. And, look, I said it on the page, I'll say it again, like I've said for many times. Whether it's Aaron Glenn, whether it's Ben Johnson, this train keeps rolling, baby. This train keeps rolling. It's not just because, Goff. It's not just because of Ben Johnson. It's because of the whole enchilada. And I have to get my boy on, James, because, he was on the podcast earlier, and we got to talk about that. All right. What up, James?
Wow. What a performance. What a win for
man.
the Detroit Lions. Oh, my gosh. I don't know how I'm going to be able to go to sleep tonight.
I really couldn't go to sleep, to be honest. I was just like, I called my cousin. We usually watch the game together. I mean, I was telling people before you joined, under 100 yards for Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson. Actually, under 90 yards rushing for Lamar and Derrick Henry. Like I can't be even in the midst of everything that I've ever said. We were saying a lot of shit coming into the podcast last week, and like everything that we thought could happen actually happened.
I mean, I'm kind of pulling up the stats right now. I haven't even looked at the box score since the game ended, but I mean, this was an incredible performance, I thought, by the Lions. I mean, from the very first drive of the game, I thought that was kind of a statement drive, getting the ball, driving all the way down, scoring. And really the first two times this offense got stopped was one on a forward pass that they ruled a 9-yard loss on first down on the first play of the drive. I mean, that effectively ended that drive. I don't know how. Maybe we should have challenged that. I don't know, but that was kind of an egregious mistake from the officiating, I thought, especially like the rules analyst even came on and said, like, on that specific play, they're not really looking to be a stickler with that. Like the ball went like a half yard forward. They can't rule that backwards. So that was brutal. And that was one that it might not even overturn. So maybe that's one they don't challenge, but that was a bad break. And then maybe if the Lions lost this game in terms of whining about something, the drive right before the half where there was helmet to helmet on Jared Goff after they got that huge goal line stand where Jack Campbell makes a great play. The whole defense really, because it was a misdirection. They read it perfectly. Both guys were covered in the end zone, and then they had multiple guys attack Lamar Jackson. They get that stop. It's 14-7 with like 2 minutes left in the half. And I mean, there was a helmet to helmet on Jared Goff. They call, if you just like tap the guy on the helmet I've seen so many, like 5 or 6 this year already, where they barely tap the guy's helmet and it's a penalty. That was like a pretty clear helmet to helmet. It would have been like first down at the 50 with like 1:30 to go. So at minimum, even if you don't get a field goal there, they probably wouldn't have done anything, because then we had to kick it. They end up getting it at midfield, get a touchdown, then get the touchdown to start the third quarter. I mean, that was a huge turn in the game where it looked like after that fourth down stand, the Lions were in at least control to go be up 14-7, if not be up 2 possessions. And then after the next time the Lions get the ball, they're down 21-14. So the fact that they overcame that on top of everything, that was just a great football game.
I mean, tell me if I'm wrong on this, because like I thought the same thing. That helmet to helmet with Jared Goff could have been called. Absolutely, that was. I've seen way worse.
Yeah.
That was
I mean,
never
on
called.
that one, they just call it no matter what. If it's even anywhere close to the quarterback getting hit in the head, they err on the side of we're absolutely calling that.
And then the
So,
backwards pass, that was not really a backwards pass. Even the rules expert on ESPN, he said the same thing. Like, it's not really. You're not really
yeah,
gonna like challenge it whether it's 1 yard or 2 yards. You're gonna be like, oh, if it's 4 yards, then you're gonna challenge it. But
right.
I felt like this was like the pinnacle game of like SOL, right? Because like, you know how people always talk about SOL? They always talk about like same old Lions, like this is gonna be a loss because of the refs or because of like the moon or whatever the case may be. You always see it across, but I just thought like them overcoming the rough in the passer, which was a rough in the passer. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
I mean, if his name wasn't Jared Goff and it was Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow, you could bet your ass that they're going to call that 10 times out of 10. And then the backwards pass, I mean, I haven't seen a backwards pass that called bad as it was. Like,
I
I've
mean,
never
the
seen a.
broadcast almost couldn't believe it. They're like, okay, yeah, they're going to stop this one. Oh, wait, no, wow, they're actually going to run a play. And then they
I
bring
mean,
in the rules guy immediately. And he's like, yeah, that was really stingent by the refs to call that a backwards pass.
my thing was like, so I had a guy who I know who is a former ref, and he was like, yeah, if you do try to overturn that with the replay or whatever, they're gonna be
Right.
like, technically it was over a line or whatever. But he's like, they usually give you 2 yards to be like safe. You know, they're not
Yeah.
trying to say like, because if that's the case, every screen pass that you make is potentially like a backwards pass. Like
Yeah.
that's just the way it is. So
How about that field goal too? I thought he missed that. The Ravens field goal. I know the rule is like if it's kind of a tricky thing, and I even was like, I know that rule, and I was like, okay, once they show the replay, I'll probably even concede that it was probably within the rule. And then even the rules guy, the rules official said like at best that was like the refs just had to make a 50-50 judgment call. I don't think they made that field goal in the fourth quarter.
I've always said, and if you go back to like the Cincinnati Bengals or for the Kansas City Chiefs last, like when they had that really good game where Cincinnati went to the Super Bowl, Cincinnati had a kick like that where it literally crossed the crossbar, and I was like, you know, you think that they, with all the cameras that they have nowadays, that they could put a camera right like, in the field goal post.
Yeah.
Nah, and it's like it's very hard to determine. Like, did it
It's
go
tough. It's really
over?
tough. Yeah.
And it's like I was just like, damn, like I didn't think it really went in.
I mean, at minimum, it was a break for Baltimore because the rules guy even said like that's one that even within the criteria that it has to meet, you can't really tell that the whole ball was on the inside of the post there. So,
That's why I
and
always
then
say
when
like,
they showed the angle at like looking like behind the kicker, it was like, man, that really looked like it tailed off to the left. But just I don't want to berate all these in an outstanding game where the Lions won, but kind of just to the point where it was like they played as tough as a matchup as you can possibly have. Like
and
in
all the breaks went
Baltimore.
against them. You know what
Yeah,
I'm
they
saying?
had plenty of like game swings where now they're behind. They were up twice. Now they're behind 21-14.
I mean,
Plenty of things that went wrong against them. I mean, the Alex
if you,
Anzalone got held on a third down. The PI on Terry and Arnold was an uncatchable ball, even if there was some hand fighting there. And this team just rised above it. And really, I thought clearly was the better team in this game. Like, I don't think anyone will come away from this game thinking like, oh, like really they should have won probably by 2 scores. So, I mean, this was an unbelievable performance really from start to finish from the Lions, I thought.
let me get your standpoint on this, because the Lions had a 98-yard drive. And then they had a 90 what was it? A 90
96, I think.
96, yeah. I felt like that was the most that was a game-changing point in the game because you have that big of a drive. I mean, 98 and 96, I mean, that's literally like 200 yards just right there. And someone told me that Baltimore has never gave up 95 plus drives in their franchise history. They've
Yeah,
only there was only one time that they did it, and that quarterback that was the quarterback of that team was identically the Indianapolis Colts with Peyton Manning, and that was a 95-yard bomb to Marvin Harrison. So the whole uh, big time drives, I mean, they went 10 minutes and 48 seconds with the one drive, 18 plays. I mean, when in the world do you ever see a team go 18 plays in 98 yards? I mean, that's just
and I think we even talked about. I mentioned like if we can go on a couple long drives and like shorten the game, and like I thought that was huge. But yeah, I mean I think Jeremy Reisman from Pride of Detroit. I didn't fully see what the post said, but uh, he pointed out like the field positioning for the Lions in this game was largely terrible. I mean, the field positioning battle was very much in Baltimore's favor with where they were starting their drives compared to where the Lions were starting their drives. Yeah, I mean that 98 and a half yard drive was as big of a statement drive as you can have. I saw another stat with Baltimore too, where they had the longest active streak in the NFL of 57 straight games with at least one sack, and they did not have a sack tonight as well.
yeah.
So I mean with what you just brought up there, with the offensively the drive, that was a lot of being able to control up front, and you know the second one of those long drives, a lot of it was the David Montgomery huge run. But the Lions on both sides of the ball, both trenches, just absolutely dominated this game. And maybe, you know, from a Baltimore standpoint, you could make the case that the Matabuke injury really was as big as anyone would have led on to believe. But the Lions fully took advantage of that up front. And I mean, it seemed like we haven't even really talked about Jared Goff. I thought Jared Goff was unbelievable tonight. But the offensive line, I mean, he had all day to pass. I mean, even on the incompletions, I mean, I don't know how many he didn't have. Jared Goff, he was 20
He had 8.
48. I mean, a lot of those were either, you know, there was one on the first drive where the third down before the next play they scored a touchdown. It was just kind of a miscommunication with Jahmyr Gibbs. And I thought even he had St. Brown on the left side wide open too. So there was just a couple, you know, the second to last drive where maybe Goff could have taken off and gotten a couple yards, and then he kind of missed the throw on the run. But that was another one where, you know, he was open. It would have been a difficult play, but he had all day to throw, and seemingly the misses that we had were just, you know, we had a couple misses, but it wasn't anything that Baltimore really was doing. They had a nice pass break. They had a nice throw. I think the one target to Tesla was just a really nice defensive play.
And that was Nate Wiggins, and you know, I thought he did pretty good on that one play, but like I told my cousin this. I don't know if you know this. I think you know this because I said it on the podcast Thursday, but you might have forgot about it. But when was the last time the Detroit Lions beat the Baltimore Ravens?
Yeah, they'd only beaten them one other time, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head what year it was. I saw that at some point this week.
So do you remember a coach named Derek Mason?
Oh yeah. He used to be like the head coach at Vandy at one point, that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was the leading receiver for Baltimore that day. 6 receptions, 65 yards.
You know what? I think I saw the highlights of that because they had Deion Sanders, didn't they, Baltimore?
Yeah, they had Deion Sanders.
Our running back mocked them with one of his. Was that Kevin Jones?
Yeah, Kevin Jones. Yep.
Oh man, what a legend, Kevin Jones. But yeah, I just saw the highlights of that game a couple days ago.
You know what's the funny thing about that game though?
What's that?
Kevin Jones wasn't even the leading rusher.
Oh yeah, I didn't even know who that other guy was. I didn't. What year was that game?
That was October 9th, 2005 at Ford Field.
I was 9 years old. I probably still watch that game for sure.
Oh, for sure. But
But
I
yeah,
was
I
just
didn't remember that. Who was the guy? Who was that guy that had that huge long run for a
Sean
touchdown?
Bryson.
Sean Bryson. Yeah, I don't remember. I don't have a memory of him as
So
a
he
fan.
played
That
at
was an electric
Tennessee.
run.
He played at Tennessee. He was a third round pick by the Buffalo Bills.
Okay.
He only had 528 yards in his entire career.
Probably like 20% of them on that run right there.
No, and 77 came on that one run.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And their coach was Anthony Wright. I mean, their quarterback for Baltimore was Anthony Wright. So I mean, it's just like, holy shit, man!
Who's
Like
the
this,
Lion? Was it Joey Harrington? Was the Lions quarterback?
Joey Harrington was the leading Lions quarterback.
Okay.
He had 23. This is a far cry from Jared Goff, but he had 10 attempts. He had 10 completions for 23 yards and 97 yards.
Wow.
One touchdown, 2 interceptions. So, I mean, beggars can't be choosy. That was a pretty impressive win by the Lions back in 2005. But I don't know, man. I just think about it like this. Like, this is a monkey that the Lions had to get off their back, man. Like, it just, I don't know, man. This is a game that, like, when you think about Dan Campbell type wins, this was the echelon of it. You know, going to Kansas City, beating Patrick Mahomes on the ring night. We talked about that. You know, going and beating them was like, you knew that they arrived, right?
Yeah.
But them playing the Baltimore Ravens tonight on Monday Night Football in front of a national audience, you know,
And the
especially
game
in
had
our,
literally no one picked them to win. None of the analysts, no one with a platform picked this team to win. Even myself, no one really in the Lions fan base had thought, even optimistic people, like, yeah, they would have a chance, but there really was almost no one picking the Lions to win this game.
I mean, it's kind of funny that the team put out this. So they put out I took that personally with the whole game picks, the Ravens, and then they posted this where
Oh,
you know,
wow. Someone picked us. Good for that guy.
yeah, but you know he he hasn't done good on the year. So I mean, one guy picked you out of like what 15.
Yeah.
I mean, when me and you were talking about it on the podcast, like we were saying like the I hope they win. I think they can win. There's a pathway to them winning. But the reality of the situation is like, hold up. I don't know.
Yeah, I with what you were kind of saying, you alluded to the Kansas City performance. I have this unquestionably a top. I categorized it top 4 regular season win under Dan Campbell, no doubt. The 3 other I picked were the 2012 Week 18 game against Green Bay,
Yeah.
the Aaron Rodgers last game there. Then in the following game, the opener against Kansas City. And then last year, week 18, 14-2 versus 14-2 for the NFC North Championship and 1 seed against the Vikings. And then tonight against Baltimore. I got those as the best 4.
I mean, I think that Baltimore win is by itself because winning on the road, like Kansas City and Baltimore, that's tough, man. Going to Baltimore, going to Kansas City, it's not like going to like your run of the mill team like Tampa Bay or whatever. It's going to a tough place to play, and you usually don't beat those teams unless you play perfect football. Like Patrick Mahomes, I mean, he threw an interception. Derrick Henry tonight fumbles
What
the
a
ball.
play by Aiden Hutchinson.
What a play. I mean, that's textbook of what they show you in like when you're playing football. They're like, dude, punch the ball. Like just punch the ball. Like he was all ready to make a play. You could tell that he was looking up the field, and then he looks up the field and punches out. And look, Henry's a hell of a running back. There's no doubt about it. He's had some fumble issues with Buffalo and Detroit. They both keyed in on it, but like the way I look at it, it's just great game planning. And Hutch knew exactly where to punch the ball out at the right time. It's kind of similar to what Brian Branch did with that Patrick Mahomes pick 6. Remember, like
Yep.
that wasn't like that wasn't like a bad play by Patrick Mahomes.
No.
He was just running the play, and then he, Kadarius Toney let it bounce off his face. But I mean, the same thing with Derrick Henry, he was looking to go upfield, and before he could make it the cut, Hutch was right there, and that's just perfect game planning, like in film review. Like you see this in film, and you're like, all right, if I have a chance to like knock this ball the hell out, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, I mean, they had I mean, and they had speaking of to that, they had other opportunities in this game. I mean, uh Kelvin Shepherd really had this game figured out. I mean, he had his guys in position to make plays all night. Brian Brantz dropped an interception that I think he makes, 80 to 90% of the time. It was an incredible play by him still because he was guarding another receiver, and then he read that they were going to someone else, and he left his guy and kind of undercut him. And that was kind of another bit of adversity too, because they should have had that interception, and then they had that weird Derrick Henry play where they threw it, and I think it was DJ Reed almost had an interception. So there was two almost interceptions on that play, and that was one of Baltimore's touchdown drives. So guys were in position all over the place. Derek Barnes, I thought, was a guy that had an underrated game, made a couple really nice tackles against Lamar Jackson where if he would have got out of those, they could have had a big play. Aiden Hutchinson was all over the field tonight. I mean, I can't wait to see his film in this game because even on the plays where he didn't get a sack, I know he was drawing. There was one play where I think actually on the sack, he was triple teamed. There were three guys that got hands on him, and he got the sack from behind on Lamar Jackson. I think that obviously freed up Al-Qadim Muhammad, who was sensational tonight. Maybe one of Jack Campbell's better, if not best games. That huge play on fourth down, and he seemed to be kind of flying around the ball too. So Anzalone, I thought, was pretty good tonight as well. I mean, the linebackers shut me up tonight. I probably most critical of the linebackers over any other singular group, just because I think the Lions have put a lot into that room. I think they think highly of it. Kelvin Shepherd, obviously being the linebackers coach, before being the defensive coordinator. And I think all those guys, they're the depth and the approach of we want 3 or 4 guys that can really play. And this is even without Rodriguez. The linebackers, I thought, showed out tonight against a really tough matchup for them too. And even on the touchdown that Anzalone, the 3rd and 13 or whatever, that was really good coverage by Anzalone. It was just a perfect pass and great catch by Andrews.
Yeah, I want to give you this stat because this just came up on my Twitter feed. I think it'll come up on your Twitter feed. I'll actually tag you in this because this is actually pretty funny. But this was like a literally perfect game when we talk about the Detroit Lions because the Lions did not turn the ball over once. They allowed 0 sacks, made the optimal decision on every 4th down, and missed only 4 tackles on defense. The Ravens finished with 1 turnover on downs, allowed 7 sacks, and missed 20 tackles. So essentially, you could say the Detroit Lions played a perfect game on the road, which is, I mean, to be honest,
love to see it. How good does that reflect on these assistant coaches, on Dan Campbell? What a tough spot this was, honestly, going on the road to face this team. And yeah, a debatably flawless performance by this team. I mean, to the point where honestly, I'm kind of annoyed that Baltimore got a garbage touchdown, just because like the score almost doesn't do it justice how good the defense played and just how good in general this team played, to where it was, a 14-point game with a minute and some change to go.
So Pro Football Focus posted something today, just right now. Just right now. How many pressures do you think the Detroit Lions had?
30. Right?
You got it right. 30.
I think I saw that right after the game because I was like, this isn't like, because even at halftime, like there was one person that tweeted at me questioning why would we pay Aiden Hutchinson $45 million, which I actually was going to go back. I haven't gotten the chance to respond to him back if he still has that opinion. But Baltimore, I think, threw the ball like 9 times in the first half, and the Lions still had 5 pressures. And there was also that play where Lamar Jackson got out of the pocket on third down largely because Alex Anzalone was held. I thought these guys were playing unbelievable from the start on defense. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson was all over the place, and really this entire front seven was in the backfield, play after play. And it was, credit to even to Lamar Jackson for extending some of these plays and turning them into even some of the sacks where they were 1 or 2 yard sacks could have been like a 10-yard sack. I mean, the Lions were flying around the ball tonight on defense.
I mean, the way I look at it is like, okay, when Michigan played, for a lot of people that are Michigan fans on this podcast, which me and James are not Michigan fans. Well, James might be, but
I'm not. But I still watch him every week.
He's a Bowling Green boy.
I heard Action fan.
Yeah, he's a Maction guy. But
yeah,
to put this in perspective, when the Michigan Wolverines played Central Michigan, they had 25 pressures. 25. They're playing a MAC team that is in the first year of a head coach, okay? And they had 25 pressures. The Detroit Lions went against a quarterback like Lamar, offensive line that features Tyler Lindenbaum, Rose Garden, Falale, who is a damn good guard. Like, this is a good offensive
line. Their tight ends were doing a good job, too, chipping and stuff.
I look at it like this. I'm going to be totally honest with you. Like, playing against Baltimore the way you did tonight gives me so much optimism for when you go play Tampa Bay. What are you going to do to Kansas City with their offensive line?
This team we should demolish it should not be a contest against the Bengals. We really should have our way. Like, it's the NFL and it's a road game. It might be close. I get it. But
yeah, but the
really
Bengals
have our way in that game.
Like, you actually have a good point, though, because what are the Bengals terrible at?
Horrible. The Lions should dominate the trenches on both sides of the ball.
They cannot protect the passer. They cannot get after the passer because
they can't stop the run.
They can't stop the run. So, like, it's like, what are you gonna do? Like, I mean, like,
and it's gonna be like over 50% Lions fans at that game for sure.
And there's no Joe Burrow. I mean, I think Jake Browning's a pretty good backup. But when you think about
probably is, honestly, yeah.
But when you think about it like this, like, I feel bad for the kid because, like, coming in for Joe Burrow is like coming in for Tom Brady or Mahomes. It's like, you basically have to keep that ship afloat, and it's not going to be easy.
It's not a good roster outside of Jamar Chase and Trey Hendrickson. Like, that's a terrible dysfunction.
Outside, I heard this from someone, and I want to get your perspective on this because I think it's true. But someone was talking. I was talking to a Cincinnati Bengals guy who he writes for a blog or whatever, and he was like, Cincinnati Bengals, they remind me of your 2011 Lions, 2012 Lions. And I go, dude, shut the fuck up. Like, that's like the worst time to be a Lions fan because, like, remember when those days when we had Calvin and we had Chris Durham, we had Java Best, all those guys, and they could score in bunches, right? They just could never defend. Like that game in New Orleans when they lost the playoff game.
Yeah.
They scored like 31 points and they still lost. Like,
yeah, we had one, maybe 2 good years of a good defense. The year we should have beat Dallas in the playoffs, that defense was good. Outside of that, yeah, it was horrible defenses and horrible offensive line play was really the thing that brought them back because their offenses were plenty good enough.
I mean, I think the offenses that they had,
which is crazy because they still couldn't run and their offenses still put up points and everything.
Well, we went from 2012 to the first year of Patricia when they played the Patriots, where we had a 100-yard rusher.
Like, yeah, the fact that was celebrated as like a pop the champagne moment. I forget I should know this, but I don't. But the amount of in a singular game 100-yard rushers that like Matthew Stafford had in his 12-year career is like embarrassingly low. It's like 6 times or something we had a guy rush for like maybe 7 or 8 at most, but it was a good team has that like 10 plus times a season. Like,
well, to put it in perspective, Kyron Williams has been his running back for about what 3 years, 4 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So even if Kyrie Williams runs for 100 yards for the next 7 years, which is not gonna happen, he still will never catch Peyton Manning, in terms of having 100-yard rushers. He
Yeah.
will never catch Tom Brady as having 100-yard rushers. He won't even catch Steve McNair with 100-yard rushers. Like the most insane stat I've ever seen in my entire life
It's
because
crazy.
I mean, I don't even know. People are asking about Terran Arnold. What's your thoughts about that whole situation?
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to rewatch the game. I mean, it certainly seemed like the first half he definitely had some bad moments. Um, I can't really off the top of my head remember a play in the second half that he was beat on or even they completed a pass on him. So uh, if that's the case, I mean, I think I don't. It's tough right after a game like this, but if he had as good of a second, because I don't really think the Ravens did much of anything in the second half, outside of the late touchdown drive, and then even the one touchdown drive that they had where the Lions like dropped two interceptions. It didn't really seem like it was. I didn't see anyone tweeting about it in the second half, or I didn't see the announcers commenting like Terry Arnold's getting beat. So maybe he had a really bounce back second half. I don't know. Certainly had a couple plays early in the first half where the announcers were saying they were going after him, and they had a couple completions. Part of that is this is an incredible offense. I thought that they would score. I thought it could be maybe even like a 40, 45-41 type game. Like this is an incredible Baltimore Ravens offense that they essentially held them to like 24 points without they scored a touchdown with 30 seconds left. But we'll see. I guess the tape will tell. But all in all, probably a little nitpicky on this game, especially given the assignment of Baltimore, and then even some of the completions they had are Lamar breaking out of the pocket after 4 seconds, and I don't really think many defenses are going to cover that long against a team like this. So I think all in all, probably a great performance by the defense, and maybe Terry Arnold struggled a little bit at moments, but it did seem like he bounced back pretty nicely in the second half.
Well, the way I look at it is like this is like when you look at Baltimore, right? Um, like Lamar Jackson had 7 sacks tonight. So right then and there, you're like, okay, pass defense probably had something to do with that having
For
7
sure,
sacks.
no doubt.
And then you look at it like this, like, okay, they had 7 sacks and a majority there was a couple of sacks in the second half where it was coverage sacks. And if Terry Arnold was as bad as people are plaguing him to be, which he was pretty bad, especially in the Devontae Walker route. But you got to remember when you play a guy like Walker, who is a speedster wide receiver, who is known as like the JMO of the Baltimore Ravens, who is super fast and he can beat you. When he does that like shortcut route that goes towards the sidelines, if he catches it, which he could or he couldn't, he's gonna beat you. And I just look at it like that. Like I don't think that Tyrion Arnold had like this terrible game from everyone.
I think Kelvin Shepard probably thinks this secondary is pretty great. I mean, I'm looking at the numbers right here. Mark Andrews had 6 catches for 91 yards, which was by far their big receiver. He was getting covered by like linebackers mostly. I mean, the touchdown he had was on Anzalone. I can't think of the other touchdown he had off the top of my head, but then they had Rashad Bateman with 5 catches for 63 yards. Justice Hill was their next guy, who's a running back, right?
Yeah, running back up.
3 catches for 45 yards. I mean, Zay Flowers, 2 catches for 13 yards. That was probably the guy I was most scared about on this Baltimore Ravens offense. I mean, especially when you key in on the run game, that's a guy in Zay Flowers that can easily, even if it's one play, 60, 70 yards. I mean, for him to have 2 catches, 13 yards. DeAndre Hopkins, 1 catch for 13 yards, and that was, I think, the last play of the first half where and that was another one where it was a super, like Lamar got out of the pocket and created some time. I mean, the wide receivers did not do hardly anything in this game. So, I mean, I think the secondary probably had a pretty strong performance.
I Mayanku is one of the admins of the page because he does like he'll post shit all the time.
Couldn't agree more. That guy's absolutely going to be a head coach. If nothing off his leadership, I mean, the guy's clearly knows what he's doing he's a defensive coordinator in the NFL, but just listen to that guy talk. It's impossible not to think he's going to be a head coach.
It's interesting because I have Calvin Shepard. His quote. He says, "To me, Calvin Shepard will be a head coach in this league, in my opinion." And that's coming from a guy who, I mean, Steve Spagnuolo is one of the best coordinators in this game.
No doubt.
And, when we look at Shep and we talk about his coaching philosophies, he's a guy who coaches on effort, unity, and relentless. And I think tonight we saw every one of those characteristics that he preaches, And I just think, like, look, dude, when you have a coach like Steve Spagnuolo that's going to go verge for you, Aaron Glenn verged for him too as well, but I don't have that quote still. But it just goes to show you, like, the guys.
Glenn really Johnson actually complimented him pretty highly in the post-game press conference after the game at Ford Field. I tweeted that on my account, but called him out by name and said Calvin Shepard, something along the lines of, he's a fantastic coach and has a bright future in the league.
I just look at Calvin Shepard like this. Like, he played for Buffalo. He played for New York. They're Super Bowl champion teams. He's a really smart guy. He truly is a smart guy. And the way this team played defense tonight, I mean, Jack Campbell, I mean, what he's done with the linebackers the last couple of years with Aaron Glenn as the defensive coordinator. I mean, just think about who made the big plays tonight. Anzalone, Jack Campbell, Derek Barnes.
Yeah.
Like, Trevor Nowatzki,
Trevor Nowatzki. That was nice.
Zach Cunningham made that crucial play on third down.
And honestly, maybe an underrated play. And they pointed this out on the broadcast, which I liked. And maybe it was partially his fault initially. But if Grant Stewart didn't tackle that guy on the punt, that would have been like a punt block touchdown. And Baltimore that was maybe the biggest play in their game against the Browns, where it was still that was like a 20-10 game in the fourth quarter, the Cleveland game against the Ravens. And they had a huge block punt, which was probably the play of the game there. So,
well, I always tell people, if you're going to get a penalty,
at least have to prevent a block punt, a play like that, or blocking 70-yard touchdown or whatever.
Well, it's funny you mention it because your coach of your Bowling Green Falcons actually said something about that. I think it was the last couple of weeks. Last week, I think it was. There was a guy that got a pass interference call, and he goes, "I'll take pass interference calls over a house call any day." And I'm like,
yeah,
you know what?
Especially in college where it's not a spot foul.
Right. But even in the NFL, like, okay, I'll take a spot foul for a guy that's gonna have a shoe and touchdown, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you one of the guys that was saying, I think it was Devin McCourty, whatever. He said he had a tackle, with Marvin Harrison the one time. He's like, I don't give a flying shit if he pass interference. Like, I'm not letting him beat me. And identically, that was the game that won them, that got him to the Super Bowl. So it was like, sometimes you have to make those plays, and I think that's the most important thing about being a professional is, like, sometimes you have to make the benefit, the benefit of the doubt, where you're like, okay, if I get a penalty here, it might save a touchdown. Because, there's a lot of coaches in the NFL or in college football that are like, hold up, don't get a penalty. But if it can save me 7 points, I'm good with it.
Yeah, for sure. One other point I want to make that is a credit to John Morton. We were talking a lot about Calvin Shepard. One thing I noticed, and if you go back and watch this game, on a lot of the Lions run plays, they put Amon-Ra St. Brown in motion right before the snap and got him like right up and tight with the offensive line as like an extra blocker. You know how they kind of motion him in and he kind of sets and then cuts up right as like basically right where a tight end would be as an extra blocker. They did that like at least 5 to 7 times. And then on that fourth down at the end of the game, it was the same exact look and Ben Johnson would get praised a lot with this, where they show these looks and then they do different stuff off of it. But they motion Amon-Ra St. Brown into that same exact spot. And right when he did that, I was like, okay, they're going to run it like up the middle. And that's where he shoots right through. And the guy held him. So it would have been a penalty either way. But that was 100% like scheme throughout the game where we're going to show him this look like 7 different times the same way. And then on the biggest play of the game on fourth down, our best player, Amon-Ra St. Brown, is going to show that look and then do something totally different and burn right by the guy and get a huge completion to win the game, even with, and one, because he got held on the play and they threw the flag.
Well, I don't know if you followed my logic, but I've always been along the feeling of that Ben Johnson ran Dan Campbell's offense, and even Johnny Moore.
Great look for Dan Campbell today with that take.
And I think that like even if you go back to Dan Campbell and when they fired Anthony Lynn, right, the same offense that they run now is the same offense they ran then. It really is. Just there's variations of difference because when you play over a course of 3 years, you're going to have variations of a different offense. But I just look at Dan Campbell like this. Like, people always assume that it was Ben Johnson's offense. They always assumed that with Ben Johnson leaving that this team would go by the wayside. And then there's people that were like Dan Orlovsky was one of them, where
that guy is an idiot. He was saying this team. He was like week 1. He's like, we stink now. We don't have Ben Johnson. We're gonna be good.
They don't have Ben Johnson. They're never gonna be good again. And then there's Schrager who made that stupid skit, and I was like,
hooking us.
I lost.
There were how many people this offseason were genuinely convinced that this team's success was essentially largely tied to a couple assistant coaches. Because that was basically the opinion that we were going to be no good now because we lost a couple coaches.
You had guys on 97.1 Ticket that did it. You had guys on NFL Network that did it, ESPN, and it's like, do you even watch the football games? Because
if you full-fledged victory lapped after week 1.
Yeah, they're like, oh, it's done and over. It's like like the one person I was laughing about, and I can laugh with him because I actually know him personally, Rico Beard. Like Rico Beard, he threw the victory. He threw the victory lap. He's like, look, man. He's like, Ben Johnson's not here. You could do without Ben Johnson. I'm like, whatever, dude. It's 1 week in the season. Like, I don't know if you don't know this, but you don't crown someone's ass after 1 week in the season. Like Denny Green said, you crown their ass right now. They are who they thought they are.
Yeah,
amazing.
But I still remember that game.
But the way I look at it, like when you look at Ben Johnson, right, and you look at Dan Campbell, and then you look at Johnny Morton, like if you were an offensive coordinator, would you not love to call an offense with this group of players?
Exactly. Like, and honestly, I keep bringing up Ben Johnson. He brought that up too. There's quotes of Ben Johnson saying anyone could call plays on this offense and they would be amazing, which is to a large extent true. This is an unbelievably loaded offense. The only question was, would like the interior line hold up, which it absolutely has in these first 3 games. And it was overblown that they didn't even do great the first game. I thought there was a couple miscommunications, but
I'll take it a step further. If you can't call an offense for this team, you probably should find a new profession.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like St. Brown, Gibbs, Montgomery, JMO, Laporta, Isaac Tesla,
and Goff running the show, being able to read defenses before the snap. And
you got a right tackle and Penei Sewell, who is one of the best pass blockers in the entire NFL. Taylor Decker, veteran left tackle.
He's a great in pass protection, Taylor Decker.
Where in the world can you get that you know composite talent? Like I can't think of a team off the top of my head that has that type of talent. Like I mean, maybe Baltimore has that type of talent, but I don't even think Zay Flowers on the same pedestal as St. Brown.
Yeah, I think the Lions far and away have the best. If you're just limiting it to running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers, easily the Lions. And then, if you want to throw in quarterback, offensive line, it's not like we wouldn't rank great in that also. So,
well, I always laugh my ass off because people were saying Goff, couldn't function without Ben Johnson, but it's funny because you mentioned Ben Johnson and you mentioned Jared Goff, and you go, who's the Vikings quarterback? Who's the Vikings head coach?
Kevin O'Connell.
Wasn't he Jared Goff's offensive coordinator?
He was, yes.
Yes. And then Green Bay, Matt LaFleur. Wasn't he Jared Goff's offensive coordinator? All right, cool. Ben Johnson, we all know he was also Jared Goff's offensive coordinator. So it's funny you mentioned every one of the coaches that you go against in the NFC North made their name on Jared Goff. So I it's like, what are you saying, dude?
I'll summarize my thoughts on Jared Goff, both tonight and overall as the Lions franchise quarterback. I tweeted this out during the game. I just pulled it up. Wow, I see that it has 17 retweets and 143 likes. So people were at least agreeing with me tonight. It simply says, Goff is I think this was after his touchdown pass to Amon-Ra St. Brown in the kind of corner of the end zone there. Perfect timing. Couldn't have laid it out any more perfectly for him. And I tweeted, Goff is such a great quarterback. Anyone that thinks otherwise is simply wrong. I mean, I can't lay it out any more bluntly than that. I mean, the idea that Jared Goff isn't like an outstanding quarterback that the only limitation he has is he's not a freak athlete. But I'll take a guy all day that is accurate, can lead an offense, is a great leader, can get this team into the right plays every single time. On point almost all the time, Jared Goff. I've lost track of the amount of just unbelievable, just clean, awesome performances he's had as the Detroit Lions quarterback.
When people say that he's not athletic enough, I understand that. I do.
When I say that, I just mean he's not going to be Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen out there.
Right, but when you look at Lamar Jackson, like, has he got a team to the Super Bowl?
No.
Has Josh Allen got a team to the Super Bowl?
I've tweeted that out like 2 or 3 times already this year. I'm always like saying that, like, we need these robot, incredible athletic quarterbacks. Yeah, they haven't like basically done anything in the playoffs.
Because what it comes down to, James, I'm going to be honest with you, is like every player, every person in the world that follows football, they're like, oh, you need a quarterback like Lamar. Do you? You need a quarterback like Josh Allen. It would be very, very nice to have Josh Allen.
Yeah,
but the reality is he's a one of one. But when you look at quarterbacks throughout the years of like Brady's, the Mannings, the Steve Youngs. I mean, Steve Young was a little bit mobile, but like Joe Montana, guys like that. What was the one characteristic that they had that some of the quarterbacks that we talk about, like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, don't have? Ball placement, and then the smarts to get the ball,
accuracy, and being able to process fastly, and like leading the offense as the quarterback. It goes more than just avoiding a sack and making a great scramble. Like,
and I would never have had this conversation like a couple years ago, but I heard Dan Fouts, and I don't. Dan Fouts is not the end all be all, but he was a quarterback in the NFL, and he said something about like, when you look at a quarterback, do you want a quarterback that gets you the ball, or do you want a quarterback that runs? And I thought about it like, hold up. If you're a wide receiver like St. Brown or JMO, You want to get the ball where you can
Yeah.
make a play. You know, yes, athleticism is huge in this game today, but some of the things that they lack in terms of the ball placement, accuracy, is something that Jared Goff is really good at. Like it just, I mean, you want to take what they have and then you want to put it in Jared Goff. Cool. You want to make a Madden character? Cool. That's not the real life. Like that's not just like I laugh because it's like if you do go over the Super Bowl champions, how many are mobile quarterbacks?
I mean, I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm
I
sure.
mean, before Jalen Hurts won last year, you would have to go back to Russell Wilson. So
Yeah, I mean, Jared Goff has already with this organization been more than good enough to get to a Super Bowl. I mean, in 2023, he had 2 awesome playoff wins, and then nothing about his performance against San Francisco suggested that he did anything wrong really in that game. I mean, a couple drop passes, a fumble. Those are really the consequential plays in that game, and that's not on him. So I really don't see how a Lions fan like look at the 2023 season. Like I get it. Like we did horrible in the playoffs, and he had a bad game, honestly, against Washington last year in the playoffs. But like this is a guy that has already shown in Detroit, of all places, a place that has had almost zero playoff success. And this is a guy that can get it done in big time spots. How many prime time games against big time opponents with everything on the line? How many times has Jared Goff delivered for this team? He's been sensational, so time in, time again. And he's going to have a bad game here or there. That any quarterback is going to do that. And I get the fact of the matter is there's just going to be people that unless this team wins the Super Bowl, some people just say Jared Goff isn't good enough to win one. They same exact people said the same thing about Matthew Stafford, that he's never was good enough to win a Super Bowl. There's some narratives that people just, regardless of what they see, they're just going to hold it to a results based thing, even if it's not, really in line with how that result is getting there. So it just is what it is. I'll take Jared Goff 1,000 times out of 1,000, and I'm glad our head coach and general manager thinks the same.
well, if you watch that quarterback special, they were like, "Yeah, we were excited to get Jared Goff," and it's like they had a belief in him. They felt like he was the guy that could lead this team. And I laugh at people that say like Jared Goff is like he's like this terrible quarterback, like, and they'll always bring up to me, and I laugh about it I laugh my ass off about it. But they'll say like, "Do you remember the Super Bowl?" I go, "Do you remember the Super Bowl?" I go, because the greatest quarterback of all time in that game had
Mustered
zero.
up what? Not much.
Nothing. Zero
Yeah.
touchdowns. Both quarterbacks had an interception to their name. Do you know what won them the game? James White rushing touchdown. I go, look, that was the best defensive game in terms of Super Bowl, in terms of great defense that we'll ever see. Because you had the greatest quarterback of all time, who everyone on planet Earth says is the greatest quarterback to ever play the game. And you had Jared Goff. And they had similar stat lines. Like the only way that Tom Brady had different stat lines is because he created he had passes to James White that were like 30, 40 yards. That was the only difference in the passing game. And I laugh my ass off because whenever anybody ever brings up this passing game against the New England Patriots, I go, "Did you even watch that game? Do you
What
even
was the
know?"
final of that game? Like 13-3
It was 10-3.
or something? 10 to
It was
3?
10-3.
Yeah, like
10-3.
yeah.
It came down to a rushing touchdown by James White. And that's just my point. And then today, I don't know if you've seen this. I quote tweeted it, so you can go back on my profile. You'll see it. You'll see it, James. But anybody who ever follows, like, you can go to JC Joe's Chap Detroit Sport, Detroit Joe Chap at whatever Twitter, and then for James it's section 344 Lions. But look, I went back and there was a guy that it was a notable Twitter account that we both follow, I guess, or they come up in our feed. But he was like, he it was the funniest thing. He's like, he's like, where is it right here? He says, when are we going to talk about Hutch? And then there was another quote, there was another tweet behind it, but it was like, oh, I got 3 separate group chats that are talking about Hutch. Let me just tell this to you
Oh
guys.
my God, the Hutch narratives in this town.
I,
I don't get it, man. I don't get it.
No, you don't have to get it because I know people who don't play. Like, okay, what do you play football, right?
I didn't. I never played football.
Okay, so I
I
played
worked with a college football team for like 10 years.
Right.
I went to a bunch of practices.
Oh, yeah,
got to talk to coaches and stuff, but I never actually played football.
So I play defensive end. Okay, so I'm really well versed in what a defensive end has to do in terms of a running quarterback versus a passing quarterback versus pocket quarterback. Okay, when you play a running quarterback, you're trying to keep him in the pocket. You're not trying to over pursue. You're not trying to get sacks because if you get sacks, I mean, usually, like I think it was who was it before? It was Carson Wentz when Hutch was coming to the league. They were like, even though Carson Wentz was on like bionic knees, they were like, you gotta watch him, you know, and you do because even though Carson Wentz was on bionic knees, still has the threat to run. And whenever you play a quarterback that has a threat to run, no matter if you're a defensive end that is a powerful guy or you're a finesse guy or whatever the case may be, your job as a defensive end is to contain the edge. Period. End of story. And anybody who doesn't know defensive end by a million chances will say like, "Why aren't you getting sacks? Why aren't you getting sacks?" Well, when I'm playing,
Some fans say that about defensive tackles too. Why doesn't DJ Reader have double-digit sacks? He's no good. You're an idiot.
When you play Lamar Jackson, okay, like a guy like Lamar Jackson, like if I was playing Lamar Jackson, you know what I would do? I wouldn't rush the passer, man. There's not one chance in hell that I would actually go upfield and have him beat my ass. Now, if you go back to the Darius Smith conversation we were having, like before the season, everyone was having a Darius Smith conversation because suddenly he's fucking Reggie White. But when you watch your Darius Smith, okay, you go back to that Buffalo game. Please go watch that Buffalo game. If you're a fan of football, go watch it and watch Darius Smith and watch how he contained Josh Allen and watch where Josh Allen went 9 times out of 10. He rolled to Zadarius Smith's side because he knew that Zadarius Smith, if he just got outside the edge of the where he could go, he could make that pass 9 times out of 10, and that's exactly what he did. And when when the Lions didn't sign Zadarius Smith and the Eagles did, I was like, okay, I know Davenport's gonna get injured. I know that for a fact. He never can stay healthy. I think he's probably one of the funniest guys in the whole entire league where you watch him and you're like, this guy is like a walking hospital. But when I think about Davenport and I think about
coming back week 9, baby, he's gonna be out there for a couple games. He's gonna get a sack or 2.
and then he'll go back on IR and then we can
get him back to the playoffs and he'll get another sack.
All he needs to get me is a sack.
And McNeil will be back by then. We'll be all right.
And they might have a trade deadline acquisition too. They might get Kayvon Thibodeaux.
Yep.
But my thing about it was like the whole thing about it was people were like, "Oh, you need to go get the sack." I go, "No." With the teams that you got on your schedule, and I mentioned this at the schedule preview, you got Saquon Barkley, Kyron Williams, Josh Jacobs, and Derrick Henry. Okay, they could be
bottled up 2 of those guys. Josh Jacobs did nothing against the Lions.
And then you got these quarterbacks who can run on you. I mean, Jane Daniels can run on you. You don't have to worry about Joe Burrow now. Dak Prescott, I don't even know if he's going to make it through the rest of the season. But
The Lions are going to destroy the Cowboys.
But my point is though, like when you play these Russian quarterbacks, your job is not to
Got to be
be.
disciplined.
You're not trying to go upfield and trying to get a sack. Like you're never trying to do that.
And to your point, if you watch Baltimore play, and I don't think they pointed it out in this broadcast, but they did when they were playing the Bills earlier in the year. Lamar Jackson will almost like sprint backwards like 20 steps just to get like to create that space in the pocket where he can then run forward and like have all this extra space. So, and I don't really think the Lions really allowed them to do that. And the times that he did, he kind of like ran himself. I think he tried to do it at the very end where the Lions got one of their sacks on the last drive that Baltimore ended up getting that garbage touchdown. But yeah, to your point, like Lamar Jackson is probably with Josh Allen are the two guys that are almost like, even if you stay disciplined, are impossible to contain. Certainly if you're not doing your job and you're chasing sacks, then you're probably screwed.
Well, they call that method the boomerang method because you're going back and then you're going up.
Yeah, he does that so well.
And he does it really well. He's one of the best at it. But the problem with that is if you're disciplined, you could really have him in the pocket and make sure he doesn't do it. And what teams do, especially with Steve Spagnuolo, with the Chiefs, what they've done, they'll do the same thing. Like they're not moving. You can you go back a billion yards and they're not moving, and that's what I like, man. Like people think that when you watch defensive ends, like your whole job is to go get a sack. It's not. Like Myles Garrett is a one of one. Okay, like I always say, Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett is he's probably the best player I've ever seen at the edge rusher position. Just what he could do on a daily basis in terms of getting past a tackle, stopping the run, all that jazz. And then you look at like a guy like Trey Hendrickson. I love Trey Hendrickson. I think he's a great defensive end. I like Micah Parsons, but do you know what they both fall flat on? Run defense.
Stopping the run consistently.
Run defense. So, yeah, you might get that huge sack, but what does that huge sack mean in broad terms?
Right.
If you give a 50-yard rush to Lamar Jackson, you give a 50-yard rush to Jane Daniels, what does it matter? It doesn't really matter. Like I think there's an identity that the Lions have, and I try to tell people this, but they don't listen because they have these preconceived notions about what they think the Detroit Lions should be. But like, I look at a guy like Hutch. He's a guy that stays home a majority of the time, does his job, right? And I watch a Davenport. I don't like Davenport at all. Okay, I'm not a big fan of Marcus Davenport. Never been a fan of Marcus Davenport. I think he's talented, but the reality of the situation is he can't stay healthy. And true as shit, he's on IR right now. So it is what it is. But the situation is this. They both do what they do. Davenport, his whole career has been a good run defender. Hutch, run defender. Darius Smith, absolute ass. Like, I could live with that if you're Micah Parsons. I could live with that if you're Trey Hendrickson. Darius Smith, get out of here, man.
It's a good point. And a couple parting thoughts here, because I got to wake up in about 3 hours to drive to the airport. But along those points, one guy we haven't mentioned today yet, Tyleik Williams. I think a part of the containing him is getting pressure up the middle. And there were a couple times I saw where Tyleik Williams just bull rushed his guy up the middle and just threw his man into the pocket. And the last other thing I'll say is there seemed to be a huge, I don't know if a huge portion, but a noticeable portion of this fan base that basically spent 95% of their offseason criticizing every little thing that the Lions did, said Brad Holmes didn't know what he was doing, particularly with the defensive line. And this is a defensive line with, a guy in Aiden Hutchinson, 3 games off a broken leg, Tyreek Williams, who's a rookie and only going to get better, and without, an all-pro defensive tackle and Aleem McNeil not even playing yet. This was a bad look for those people tonight that thought our GM didn't know what he was doing. 30 pressures, 7 sacks. Again, I'll reiterate that against maybe the toughest matchup this team will face in terms of being able to put up those numbers. So quite the great. I mean, I don't know. It just seems like there were so many people that were hell-bent on trying to say this team didn't know what they were doing. And tonight is a big counterpoint to anything that any of those people had to say.
Well, James, I'll leave you with this, and then we'll end the podcast because, I mean, you gotta get up, I gotta get up, and it's just a terrible situation because it's gonna come quick. But I actually interviewed with Brad Holmes when he was with LA.
Wow.
And the one thing I can tell you about Brad Holmes is he's very calculated on the things that he does. And the second thing I'll tell you is where he comes from, LA, is the same way. They are very calculated in the way that they think about things. And you could think about like, okay, they should have winning at defensive end. Okay, I'm pretty sure he thought about it too, but I'm pretty sure he thought about it like, okay, if we get a defensive end, how good are they going to be compared to if I can get a full season on Marcus Davenport? Those are the type of things you don't think about. Like a lot of fans don't think about like, oh, if I get a full season, like these general managers, they're not thinking about this guy getting hurt. They're really
Or,
not.
how am I going to plug the hole without Aleem McNeil and when DJ Reader potentially leaves
And
after this season?
I'm sure when they made the draft acquisition of Tyreek Williams, they were like, okay, look, if I could just hold serve until Aleem McNeil comes in, and then your rotation is going to be Reader, Williams, Aleem McNeil, Roy Lopez, or Makai Wango.
Muhammad.
That's a pretty deep defensive tackle room. And then if you're a defensive end and you're talking about Davenport's outright like he is right now, and you're like, let's just hold serve till trade deadline and then see what we can do. I think that's what he was thinking. I don't think
I
he was.
agree.
I don't think he was thinking like, oh, we're good. That quote that goes out all the time. Like I think Lenny and Rico always do it, but the "we're good" comment. I think that they
This
have.
was actually a part of a larger quote that said, "We're good right now," which speaks to your point of I agree. I totally think the approach was we're going to do a good enough job to where when we get to the end of the year, that's when we're really going to be clicking up front because we're going to be healthy and we're going to have these younger guys that are going to get experience like Tyreek Williams, Hutch getting back to normal. I think that was absolutely the mindset, and we can do a good enough job at the start of the season to make sure that that's a good enough plan for this season. And a point that the last thing I'll say too is I still am under the impression that Brad Holmes is not done or finished with the defensive line. I think there's a good chance that we use a first round pick on a defensive lineman this next draft or another high pick in there as well, if it's the second or third round or whatever. So I definitely don't think he views the defensive line as a finished product, and he still did take a defensive lineman in the first round this year.
I mean, here's what people don't understand. I think people that never really interviewed for a sports administration job or anything like that, they won't understand it. But I know you're a smart guy, and I know a lot of people out there are smart. But when you think about it like this, like a lot of people bring up Scott Harris, right, with the Tigers, and they'll be like, why didn't he get a starting pitcher? Why didn't he get a bullpen? Why didn't he get a hitter? There's so many things that you can't do in a limited amount of time. Like you just can't. And even if you want to and you want to fill that hole, who is to say that hole that you fill works? Like I think a lot of things that we've done in the past as Detroit Lions fans, we're like, let's fill this hole with Damian Woody. Let's fill this hole with
Trey Flowers.
Like it never worked. What about the one guy, Trey? What was the guy from Seattle, the cornerback? Oh God, it's breaking my mind. But
Coleman?
No, it was like Flowers too. I don't know what it was, but anyways, he sucked ass too. He was a slot corner, and it didn't fit. So what I'm trying to say is, like, even if you're a general manager, whether you're the Tigers or the Red Wings or the Lions or the Pistons, you try to upgrade your roster as best as you can, right? Like that's the main point of what you're trying to do. And then you look at it like this: I could try to upgrade my roster as best as I can, but when I get to a certain point where like one end is more difficult to find than the other end, because Hutch might run, he might be a prototypical right edge guy, and he might need to be looking for a left edge guy, and you really can't turn those guys from right edge to left edge quickly. So that's my whole thing. Like I laugh when people say we're good, we're good. I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure he thought they were good, and
I can't believe the people that just crap on Brad Holmes. We're the worst franchise probably in the history of North American sports before he got here. He's built, I would say, maybe the best roster in the NFL, and it's still, oh my
well,
God, what is he thinking? Why did he do this? Is he even
the
trying to
athletic,
win?
the
Oh,
athletic ranked
yeah.
the athletic ranked the Lions the third best roster in the NFL. Okay, so this whole feeling about the Detroit Lions are like this terrible team and they're never going to be good because the general manager doesn't know what he's doing because he didn't get an edge rusher.
Yeah, that's what
I mean,
so many people thought. Like, I can't believe that, man. Like, I get it. Like, you want another. I think Brad Holmes would even say, like, I think we still probably want to get a better guy opposite of Hutch here at some
but,
point. But
but
it
like,
didn't throw everything else into the garbage. This is an incredible team.
I go back to, like I said, I interviewed for Brad Holmes when he was with LA, and I know what he feels, especially during college free agency or draft or whatever. I know what he feels, and his whole philosophy is BPA. And when you watch what he's done as the drafter of the Detroit Lions, BPA's worked pretty damn good for him.
No doubt.
I mean, a guy like Derek Burns, a guy like St. Brown, a guy like Makai Wingo, like Christian Mahogany starting on the offensive line. Like, okay, whatever this guy does, I mean, he pretty much turns water into wine. Like, I don't know what you want me to do with it. Like, there's way worse rosters in the and the NFL that are way worse that are winning football teams. Like, I love when people bring up I know you got to go, but I love when people bring up the Eagles. Right? They're
Oh,
like, oh, the Eagles had the best
Eagles
philosophy,
are the golden child. Look
right?
at them.
You do realize that the Eagles didn't spend over $12.5 million for any of their defensive linemen?
And they lost Milton Williams and Josh Sweat, who were their two best edge rushers. That's the only reason they had to bring Zadarius Smith in. That team's taking a step back on the defensive front this year, for sure.
And they took a step back with the defensive backs that they didn't bring back. Okay, James Bradbury, Darius
But
Slay,
yeah,
whatever the case may be. But like, people can talk about the cap ain't real because I hear that all the time. Go ask the New Orleans Saints if the cap ain't real. Okay, like that's just the reality. So it was a good podcast today. We went through everything pretty much.
yeah,
I'm
pretty
sure
much.
we'll
I agree.
I'm sure we'll think of more stuff, but we got to go. And there's still 47 people on there, but we were at like 1,000 pretty quickly. But we'll
Nice.
see you guys in the next podcast, and we'll talk about that on the Detroit Lions podcast. Thank you for watching, and James, go get some sleep now.
Yes, sir. Go Lions. I can operate on 0 hours of sleep after that performance.
I feel the same way. I could sleep later. I could sleep on Wednesday, so it's all good. Well, we might have to sleep with depression if the Tigers lose tomorrow. So
Oh my gosh. I don't even want to think about it.
it's a school start, so hopefully, but we all know that this is not going to be fun down the stretch. So
Hey, tonight turned our luck. This is going to be a big start of the week spark plug for Detroit sports.
hallelujah. Hopefully that we go to the Church of James and St. James and we just hear the gospel. We'll see you guys in the next podcast for Detroit Lions podcast.